Khalil, Ibrahim, and the Darfur Genocide by Christopher Dobrow. The Darfur Genocide is an ongoing mass slaughter of Darfuri men, women, and children in western Sudan. Beginning in 2003, the Darfur Genocide became recognized as the first genocide of the 21st century in 2004 by United States Secretary of State Colin Powell. Experts currently estimate that over 480,000 people have been killed as a result of the genocide, and more than 2.8 million people are displaced, with numbers still rising as the conflict continues. A key contribution to the beginning of the genocide was when the two rebel groups of the JEM and the SLA rose up against the Khartoum government in retaliation to years of discriminatory treatment and economic marginalization. The two groups demanded for improved infrastructure in their regions, as well as proceeds from the oil wealth and a part in the government, all of which were refused. As the rebellions were largely led by non-Arab Muslims, because the acting power in government was comprised of largely Arab men, instead of attacking the rebels directly, the government began attacking all non-Arabs in Darfur, regardless of whether they were rebels or not, due to the threat they felt. The genocide was led by a government-armed and government-funded Arab militia known as the Janjaweed. They were operated with the goal of systematically exterminating the people of Sudan, as the Janjaweed commonly burnt down villages of innocent people, pillaging their resources, polluting their water sources, as well as murdering, raping, and torturing civilians. Relentless in their attacks, the Janjaweed even went as far as using airstrikes in their approach. For example, the image on this slide is of a 7-year-old Sudanese boy named Adam Abdel, 2 weeks after his village was struck by an airstrike by Sudanese government's Antonov plane, leaving him severely burnt and indefinitely traumatized for the rest of his life. So who was Khalil Ibrahim? Born in 1957, Khalil Ibrahim was reported dead on December 24th of 2011 after being mortally wounded by an airstrike. Dr. Ibrahim was a Sudanese insurgent leader who is most famously known as the co-founder and leader of the Justice Equality Movement and as a believed author of the Black Book, Imbalance of Power and Wealth in the Sudan, the manuscript that details a pattern of disproportionate political control by the people of northern Sudan, which continued to push political views. Ibrahim was a physician from the Koba branch of the Zaghawa ethnic group located mainly in Sudan. Ibrahim was a supporter of the National Islamic Front's seizure of power under the direction of Islamist Hassan al-Turabi in 1989, before he served time as a state minister of education in Darfur between 1991 and 1994. Ibrahim resigned his governorship of South Sudan in August of 1998. Then, he formed a non-governmental organization called Fighting Poverty. Afterwards, he went to the Netherlands to study for a master's in public health at the University of Maastricht. In August of 2001, Ibrahim announced the formation of the Justice and Equality Movement, which received political and financial support from Libya. In June of 2006, he co-founded the National Redemption Front rebel group, also known as the NRF. Who are the Justice and Equality Movement? As Ibrahim was best known for his affiliation and leadership with the Justice and Equality Movement, it is important to understand more about the group. The JEM is by far the most powerful anti-government faction involved in the conflict of Sudan's western Darfur region, claiming to have as many as 35,000 well-armed fighters in the region that borders Chad. Founded after the publication of the Black Book, the main belief of the JEM members is that the northern Sudanese Arabs are disproportionately represented within the Khartoum government, and they discriminate against non-Arabs, leaving them extremely impoverished. A quote from partial author of the Black Book, Abu Bakr Hamid Noor, stated that the northern Nile elites are monopolizing 95% of the power and wealth of Sudan, while the rest of us, who make up 38 million in 24 states, are holding only 5% of the power and wealth in Sudan. This quote emphasizes the state of imbalance that the government is holding in Sudan. Another belief of the JEM fighters is that they're fighting to save Sudan. Their goal is to form a new country that they would call the United Regions of Sudan, which would be led by a rotating presidency, giving all 6 Sudanese regions a term in office. Ultimately, the JEM fights for equality, an equality that they've been denied. What role and impact did Khalil Ibrahim have during the genocide? Although it's been nearly a decade since the death of Dr. Ibrahim, his legacy will forever be felt by Sudanese people. Whether they supported him or not, more than anything, he fought for justice. Although many labeled him as a terrorist, all he wanted was equality. Over the years of his leadership of the JEM, he made a large number of allies and his following grew tremendously. Even though information of Ibrahim and his actions are very limited, it is extremely evident that he played a massive role in the unfolding of the genocide. So now in more depth, I'll go over why Khalil Ibrahim was so important during his time in the Darfur genocide. Though his ethics may not have been what most would agree with, it is undeniable that he was doing what he believed to be right. Even so, Ibrahim is largely to blame for the unrest that continues in Darfur. For instance, in May of 2007, the U.S. tightened its sanctions against Sudan, including those against Khalil Ibrahim. The Treasury Department blamed the JEM for continuing the violence and said Ibrahim was personally responsible for rebel activity aimed at further destabilization of the region. Having had the opportunity on multiple occasions to sign a ceasefire peace agreement, each time Ibrahim refused, and the tensions continued to rise. The role Ibrahim played during the genocide was massive, and it is because of him and his supporters that this conflict still continues today, even long after his death. Up until 2010, Ibrahim had a strong alliance with the government of Chad. This is where he set up base for his troops. This alliance between the JEM and Chad only further angered the government as the Khartoum government's aggression flared, not only at Ibrahim and Chad, but as well as innocent people. This is more evidence as to how significant Ibrahim was and how important he was. He, as just one man, wielded the power to make countries turn on each other based on whether they supported him or not. However, the feud between Chad and Sudan that Ibrahim had caused eventually came to an end. Chad, after years of accusation by Khartoum for supporting and arming the JEM, brokered a ceasefire. This turned into a short-lasting peace agreement between the JEM and Sudan's government, which quickly came to an end. There are numerous accounts in history that demonstrate Khalil Ibrahim's non-willingness to stop his attack on the Khartoum government. That is, at least until he felt there was equality. As I've mentioned, Ibrahim had tens of thousands of soldiers who loved him, and it wasn't just by chance. He saw the pain endured by the people of Sudan, and he wanted to help them the best he could. Ultimately, though, it only led to more suffering for the innocent people he claimed to be fighting for. In conclusion, both arguments that Ibrahim was either an evil man or that he was a savior are both completely acceptable. Labeling his actions as good or bad is a true dichotomy, seeing that his impact had so much negative effect, but at the same time, he stood up for others when they could not stand up for themselves. As the war continues, it seems Ibrahim's dream of equality in the Sudan will never be truly realized, and now what all the people of Darfur crave is peace.